Welcome to the Echo Essentials podcast. My name is Chris Pekarski, and on today's episode, it's coming out on New Year's Day. Happy New Year. Hope you had a lovely and are having a lovely holiday break, whatever that looks like to you. Please drive safe. If you have this on in the car, thank you. Please drive safe. But on today's episode, we have in from a lot of places. You may know her, as I queue up in the episode, as the Deputy Mayor of North Bay. We have Maggie Horsfield in to come in and talk a bit about everything, I guess, mostly regarding her role as VP of FONOM, which was announced back in October. We didn't have Maggie on then. The last time we had her in the studio here was, I'm going to say April 2025. So it's nice to catch up with Maggie. It was great. It's been a bit since I've seen her. We talked a bit about Centennial. We talked a bit about FONOM and its role within Northern Ontario and Ontario politics, which was great. We talked a bit about some other key issues regarding asset management and future budgeting for 2026. And of course, what 2026 has at large, looking a little bit into the future for City Council and the city at whole. So great episode. As I always say, give it the full listen. Feel free to let us know what your thoughts on the episode. Before we get to the episode, though, we'll throw it to our title sponsor of today's show, Source for Sports.
It's almost that time of year. Early mornings at the rink, fresh notebooks and backpacks, and a community gearing up for another great season of varsity sports. At Source for Sports North Bay, we're proud to be part of it all. Whether it's finding your kid's first pair of skates, gearing up for tryouts, or outfitting your team for the season ahead, we've got you covered. Because here, we're not just a sports store, we're neighbors, coaches, teammates, and fans. And we're proud to cheer you on every shift, step, and stride of the way. Visit Source for Sports North Bay at 1321 Fisher Street and let us help you along your way.
We have in from a couple different places. You may know her for being the Deputy Mayor of the City of North Bay. We have Maggie Horsfield. And Maggie, how are you?
I'm really good, Chris. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Great to see you.
Yes, it's good to see you too. And last time I saw you, technically, it wasn't in the studio. It was about my third day working at Echo. I recently saw you at the Christmas Walk.
Yes.
Creative Learning?
It was at Creative Learning. It was full. It was jam-packed.
Yeah.
You were in line to check out, and I was getting in line to check out, and yeah.
It was busy in there.
It was busy. Yeah.
I mean, it's always busy in Creative Learning on the Christmas Walk. That's when they do, from what I can understand, really well. But it was a busy walk in general.
It was really good this year. I went down with my husband and my son, and it was really great to see Santa, snap a picture with him, but then it's just seeing the massive people head down Main Street and Oak Street and all the abutting streets and just fill the stores. That really makes the Christmas season kick off.
I said to my partner, too, that I'm not a big Christmas guy. I know. Litter the comments with how much I'm wrong. But I did get into the spirit a little bit earlier this year. We put up our tree a little bit earlier. We decorate a little bit earlier, and we're an apartment, so it's not a whole lot of work. But I was in. I was committed.
Oh yeah.
Because I used to always be like, I'm not even saying Christmas until the Christmas Walk happens. Mm-hmm. Right? Being along North Bay, I'm like, that's the point. I'm not. November 12th isn't. No, come on. We're not waiting till after Halloween. It's got to be. Christmas Walk.
Yeah, for sure. And for me too, it was the Santa Claus parade.
Oh,
Although
true. Yeah.
This year there still wasn't that much snow.
No.
But I got to walk in the Christmas Walk and hold the banner for the City Centennial. And starting to wish people Merry Christmas, but then kind of going, it's only November 19th or something, but going, you know what? This kind of gets people kicked into gear heading into the Christmas Walk and then the rest of December.
And it's a snowball rolling downhill at this point.
Lots of snow right now. So
I mean, it's been a busy year.
Yep.
At large. Talked about the Centennial. We're kind of having you in today to talk about a couple different things, and obviously we prepped one in particular, but this is airing at the end of the year. It's good to have you in. We haven't had you in the episode since April.
Yep.
So a lot has happened since then, and obviously we're going to talk about a couple things in particular. But let's talk a bit about maybe the Centennial first, because we just talked about it. So the year, the 100th year of North Bay's anniversary is, I'm assuming, wrapping to a close. Yes. I know it technically was in the middle of the year, but this is the last bit of it, right? Is that how you'd phrase it?
Correct, yeah. So the city centennial is when the city became officially a city. So we have existed for more than 100 years, but that's when we received the official proclamation of being a city. And it was in April that's when they received that proclamation.
Right.
But we decided actually back in 2023 with allocating budgets starting in 2024 to get it ramped up because city staff were thinking about how do we want to recognize the 100th year? Is it in a single day, a single event, a single moment? Or could we expand it to the entire 2025 year and then allow the community to decide how they want to remember that year? And so that's kind of the approach that was taken. And there was a committee that was struck of community members from across the city and organizations in 2024 that were meeting and coming up with plans and giving direction to staff to prepare for 2025.
Right.
So we're wrapping up on New Year's Eve at the family's first event at Memorial Gardens. They're sealing the time capsule. So if you have any items lingering, any letters that you want to be read in 25 years, that's where you'll want it to get put in. But then also it's a good way to kind of just cap off the year.
Can anyone throw something into the time capsule?
There's going to be a bit of parameters around it, but we do encourage, especially kids, to write letters. Okay. That was one thing that when they did the time capsule opening, there were a lot of letters written by kids thinking about what the year 2025 would look like. Oh. A lot of them said like flying cars or electric vehicles, and we were going like, oh, you're actually kind of right. Yeah. Some were saying no more cigarettes, and I'm like, well, we're vaping now, so
close.
Yeah, exactly.
Close.
Yeah. But there were some really cute and interesting messages that were there. But then to hear this person's name and then be like, wow, like they were there.
I was a kid.
Yeah, exactly. And then they got to read their letter and see their letter again 25 years later. Was really neat.
So I'm kind of curious, kids growing up now, and you mentioned you have a son, like what they think is the future. Because we, we're around the same age. We kind of grew up from having dial-up internet to now we have these things in our pockets that are like the world in our hands, which doesn't feel futuristic. But I guess, describe it to me 25 years ago, I would have thought that would have been crazy. So I imagine what might be futuristic for kids nowadays and what they're going to bring to the time capsule letter or object that's going to be like, wow, things are different, a quarter of a century ago.
For sure, yeah. And I think the way that AI is really taken off, especially, how many, maybe I'll just put ChatGPT to write me something that I'll put in there and just write authored by and then see what AI thinks about it in 25 years. But yeah, I think it's interesting because my son, he's 2.5, but he's already figured out how to scroll on my phone and click things. And I'm going, wow, when I was 2.5, there weren't even flip phones yet. No. It was dial-up internet.
Yep.
So it's just the leaps and strides of technology have really taken off.
Yeah, it truly has. So it's going to be fun to see what the community cements in that time capsule. But that is kind of the final event for the Centennial. Yeah. So I think when we had you in last, you talked a bit about some of the budgeting items regarding the Centennial. Feel free to share with me how you think the whole Centennial went at large. What were some big events, some key takeaways, things that we can learn for event planning in the future, or just general community kind of beats that you think the city could learn from the Centennial? Yeah,
so the city had originally set a budget of just over $900,000, and that was based off of what was spent on the 75th anniversary. And so that was just kind of a top guide. If we didn't spend all that, it wasn't going to be just spent, willy-nilly. So there were plans to have drone shows. We were able to do one drone show. And then there were some challenges with the wind, which is a factor, especially at the waterfront. So unfortunately, that didn't pan out later on. But there was so many enhanced events. The amount of live music at the waterfront all summer long, it expanded and just brought so many people together. I'm actually still wearing some of the items that were for sale, and so people were buying memorabilia for it. But we also had a lot of service clubs and different groups come together to find ways to celebrate the history. So the North Bay Museum stepped up and did all these displays celebrating, 100 years of skiing, 100 years of the university and college, and just really looking at those institutions and the people that have been around and bringing out those memories to bring people together. And I think that's what was really neat, was just seeing the ideas that people had on how they wanted to recognize it. There was Yvonne who wrote a book, Jay Saves the Bay, and that's just a really, a fun book that captures the spirit of the people of North Bay and in a way that is going to transcend time and also raise money for the local library.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough because, like, I think when I was in the studio, I was always kind of like trying to watch what's happening, but I didn't come out to a lot of events. It's my own fault. But just a busy summer. I do remember the drone shows. We almost covered like one of the drone accidents, but it was like, it's not a big enough story. It's just like, okay, it had a malfunction.
Yep.
Whatever. But it's important because, like, I think, we had all these, big ideas of what could happen, and there's a lot of great events that happened. I'm keen to hear what the community thinks, as a podcast is keen to know, like, the community. But I think it went fairly well.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
I think it's going to almost set that bar that people are going to expect more enhanced events and, more funding opportunities. And so that's going to be something that when we dive into the budget moving forward is how are we supporting the community through enhanced grants and opportunities to help fund those initiatives to bring the community out.
Yeah. You mentioned something that was interesting. I forgot about it in my last preamble. The music down at the waterfront was awesome.
Yes.
That was something that, living kind of downtown, it was always nice to kind of overhear and just be close to. I mentioned, like, I mean, I've known you for a while, Maggie. I think in our previous careers, we would travel, for a living. And I think one of the things I always said was, like, North Bay would, the city of North Bay would, this is my opinion, would do well to take note from similar sized communities and cities that do a lot of live events or community events. And I mentioned Peterborough, which is very similar in size, kind of similar in culture, very similar environmentally speaking. And I know in their summertime, they have a lot of free concerts down at their big band shell. I'm like, well, North Bay isn't that much smaller. We could do something similar. And maybe we're getting there, but it was nice to kind of see a movement in that direction, because I think it's not going to make anyone unhappy. It's going to provide something to someone.
Exactly. And that's, traveling on Ontario and then hearing people say, like, well, why North Bay? Like, why would I want to move there? Like, what is there happening? And to explain to people, like, the waterfront and bringing people together. And now we're seeing further connection with the downtown revitalization plan. And there's going to be another tunnel coming through. So more access points and more gathering spaces. And it's recognizing that community, as a city, we have a lot of infrastructure, roads and all whatnot. But to build community, it's the people and the activities and getting people out. And so when you can get people to come out, get together and just enjoy the company of others and also support local. Like, a lot of the majority of the music and the shows that they brought in were local bands and local musicians, but also supporting them. We can't just expect them to do it for free. It's not, it's an art and it's a job, and they deserve to receive their due for that as well. So I think being able to support them also helps with that vibrancy of our community.
I agree. Yeah. So you kind of keep me up in two different directions here. I'm going to take you one direction with a side note. So, what was I going to say? Okay, hold on. I think the direction I want to go with here is that you queued up budget for a second, but we'll come back to that. But we talked a bit about Northern Ontario, right? And so the direction I want to kind of bring you back to is, since we last had you on, talking about community and culture in the North, you were recently elected or appointed, I'm not quite sure the process, you're welcome to clarify, as the Vice President of FONOM, which is, I'm going to have it written here, the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities.
There you go.
So 1, congratulations.
Thank you.
2, what is that?
Yeah, so happy to explain.
Please.
At the beginning of the council term, we have what's called the ABCs, the Agency Boards and Commissions, that on top of our regular council duties, we also serve on other boards, so ranging from the library to DSAB to FONOM. And so back in 2022, I was the councillor chosen to be on the FONOM board. And so I was just a member at large at that point. There's representatives from Northeastern Ontario.
Yep.
The FONOM district ranges from Georgian Bay to James Bay.
Yeah, I have them all here if I can help you out.
Go for it.
Cochrane, Manitoulin, Parry Sound, Nipissing, Temiskaming, Sudbury, and Algoma.
Yes, it's massive. And so we have representatives from all those regions. We get together every 2 to 3 months, and we talk about the issues and challenges that Northeastern Ontario faces.
Right.
And part of that board is the president, vice president, and second vice president. In other words, the chair, vice chair, and the second vice chair.
I'm going to say vice chair.
Vice chair, vice chair pro tem.
Sure.
And so Danny Whelan had been the president of FONOM for a dozen years, and he's done a fantastic job of really putting FONOM on the map. He has, ministers calling him. He's able to call them directly, and it just really advocates for Northeastern Ontario around the things that really impact us, from highways to healthcare to land planning, because when Queen's Park is located in Toronto, in Southern Ontario, and the majority of the population of Ontario is in Southern Ontario, but the land mass is Northern Ontario, and you need Northern Ontario, we're there to advocate. And then this past year, Danny was stepping back from president. So then Dave Plord, who's the mayor of Kapuskasing, was nominated, and he was voted in by the FONOM board as the president. And then I was nominated as the vice chair and selected. So I'm still a counselor. I still have my full-time job at the university. I'm just the vice president, vice chair of FONOM.
So what you're saying, Maggie, it's not a full-time job.
It is not a full-time job, although there are a number of emails, and when I go to my meetings with FONOM, it's full days, a lot of activity. We do a lot of advocacy and a lot of conversations, but it is not my new job.
I would say, feel free to clarify. I mean, that was me poking fun at something we talked about earlier. How much of your time monthly does FONOM take away?
So I would say when we have our board meetings, so what we've done this term of FONOM is we actually travel around Northeastern Ontario to have our meetings. So instead of just doing it virtually or always doing it at a central location, it's a chance for us to actually go and see the municipalities and regions we are representing. So This past December, I drove up to Hearst. That was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that when you hear about the challenges with the highways and the wanting to open up the Ring of Fire and transporting nuclear waste up to Ignis, like you think about that, and then you think about our highways and the promise of a 2+1 and safety and highway closures and people's lives.
Right.
I was like, I need to see this highway for myself. It's been a while. So I drove it, and it's a long highway.
Yeah.
And when you are also competing with the weather and other factors, it's interesting.
Yeah.
But we were able to sit down when we got there with the mayor and with the CAO of the town of Hearst to hear from them about their challenges and make sure that we're representing them. So we travel to all kinds of different places throughout Northeastern Ontario to have our meetings. And it's rewarding that way. But then otherwise, a lot of it's over email. Mac Bain is the executive director of FONOM, and so he does a lot of the legwork in creating media releases, research papers, coordinating. But when it comes to meeting with the ministers at both provincial and federal level, that's where the FONOM executives step in.
Right. So you approximate like 10 hours a month? I know it's kind of a hard box to put you in, but I'm just because we talked about this
10 to 20,
earlier.
I would say.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
10 to 20, because it all.
If you open the driving, obviously, Hearst is not a short trip. With all due respect.
No,
right?
when there was one meeting we had in calendar. I loved that. It was 15 minutes, door to door, able to stay at home. But when you're traveling to Hearst, you have to build that in as well. But when it comes to our meetings as well, there are several hours in length because we try to really get everything done while we're all together.
Yeah.
And we discuss a lot of issues and have a lot of really good conversations with the perspectives of, very small communities that have a few hundred people up to North Bay, Sudbury, Timmins, Sault Ste. Marie that have, 50,000, 100,000 people. So we're trying to represent and hear and see where we can have that impact.
So my question for you, Maggie, is this sounds great. I know, I tried to do my homework before this. I don't know everything. Please don't give me that credit. I know very little. But when I was looking up some FONOM stuff, I believe each of the municipalities appoint one person from their council to go to this, right? Is that correct?
So there, North Bay, Sudbury, Timmins, and Sault Ste. Marie each appoint a counselor, and then the districts appoint a person.
Okay.
Because there's 100 and some different municipalities.
Yeah.
So there's not 100 of us. We're a smaller board, so there's some folks that represent a larger geographic area, which probably makes up the same, a larger populace than others.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So I guess, if I was a skeptic, I'm not saying I am, but if I was a skeptic and I said, okay, Maggie, this sounds all great, but like if you're looking at reporting and bringing issues to Queen's Park, isn't this the MPP's job? Like, shouldn't they be bringing, issues, of Northern Ontario and the regions for those that they represent to Toronto to vocalize and be part of that conversation? Why is it up to city councillors or, members of the Northern Ontario, Northeastern Ontario community at large do that for them? If they are, is that the same job?
Different jobs, I would say. Through what I've experienced and learned through this term of council, the ministers, many of them end up with portfolios. And so while they may be elected to represent their riding and have mandates that way, they're also really busy doing many other things and trying to accomplish larger items that really require their attention. And they need to hear from the municipalities. We're funded by the province. We're mandated. The legislation that municipalities receive is dictated by the province. So when we come back to them and say, like, this isn't working for us, this is where we're really struggling, this is where we need you to focus. Bail reform, it's a challenge. It's something that impacts every municipality. We need you to do something about it because it's actually hurting our bottom line. It's hurting our people. The people that live in our communities are impacted by this. We are the ones that are advocating to them to make those changes and then trying to get them to rethink it.
I imagine it's also difficult because, no one councillor or politician is the same, and you're not united under some sort of party. You come from different places, different population sizes, different ecological concerns. Like, how do you land on the same page? Do you?
Sometimes we do. There's other times where there's issues that we're going, that is a challenge, but it only affects this area, or it's something that you might want to focus on. But if it's something that can transcend all of Northeastern Ontario, and that's why I kind of focus on healthcare and highways those bigger things. North Bay wouldn't exist without Highway 1117.
Yeah.
And Northern Ontario connects to the rest of Canada through Highways 1117, unless you want to go through the States, which that's up to you.
No. No, thanks. I'm good.
So then when we hear about a tunnel wanting to be built under highways down in Southern Ontario, and we're going, but we still need to have a safe highway to use every single day that goes through all of our communities. That's where we are really kind of stepping up to say, hello, like, don't forget about us.
Like, it's also like, I think I tend to forget, and in my new job, it's a little different, but 11 East, or sorry, 17 East and 11 South of North Bay, I would say, and maybe I'm not saying because I'm from North Bay, I would say I'm biased in the sense that those are the nicest parts of those highways in relation to Northern Ontario, because 17 West is very dark. It's especially of North Bay. It is, one lane on each side, very moose, very deer. And then you go north on the 11 North, it's similar problems where it's a lot of transports, a lot of moving trucks, and again, narrow highways. Distance
between communities and stops.
Less lights. Yep. It's a tricky
cell service.
Drive. Oh my, don't even talk about cell service, please. Like, talk about Hearst, up there, it's not quite the same degree you get down here in the city. So I get it.
Yeah.
So one of the issues that I saw that FONOM was trying to advocate for and that you also vocalized is the 2-in-1 situation. Yeah. Can you explain what that is?
So the 2+1 is FONOM worked with NPI, the Northern Policy Institute, to look at the highway structure, specifically Northern Ontario, because to create, a 4-lane highway that we see going from North Bay down south, that requires you to expand the sides and, maybe reclaim land and space. And in some communities, it doesn't work. And that's why, going south from North Bay, we bypass South River and Sunridge now because you couldn't really expand the highway through those communities. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at Northern Ontario, is that feasible? The cost to do a 4-laning of a highway, it's significant. And so this proposal of a 2+1 is to always have an additional lane that rotates between sides. So in that way, when you look at the accidents and a lot of the challenges with the northern highways, it's people trying to pass.
Oh, yeah.
In areas that they get frustrated, the speed's not going the way they want, whatever situation it might be. But if you know that you don't have to wait 10 kilometers or who knows how long to pass safely, if there's a way that we can do that and just expand that extra lane that just rotates back and forth, it would also expand the width of the road and make it safer.
I will say it sounds appealing to me off the top. Is there any kind of research or pushback or any kind of things that are like, well, it's 6 in one and half a dozen the other? Like, is there, aside from a cost issue, is there any kind of drawback for this idea? Because it sounds like a good investment because it's, again, not, I would say, taking up a lot more land than a 4-lane highway would. Mm-hmm. But someone could be like, well, you're doing 3. Why don't you just go for the full 4? Like, what's the pushback?
I would say with the 2+1, it's the most feasible, and it was the one that was studied that was looked at, and you'll see it, in other countries too. Like that's kind of a very similar way to use the road, and it keeps things flowing, and just recognizing that cost factor is significant once you add that more space, and then the standards as well with the roads. Like it ends up kind of snowballing into other Ministry of Transportation requirements and whatnot when you change the road dynamic to a certain point. When you look at Oro-Medonte kind of thing, it's a 4-lane, but then there's also turnoffs to go to like all the lines and whatnot. And so how would you work that in? And that's where to build a highway through communities that are already established, that's the most feasible, I would say. Okay. From my non-professional engineering political perspective.
Well, I mean, that's the way we got to take it, right?
Yes.
Is that, we assume that the experts have done the job already, have done the work on it. So I think that makes sense. What are some other big key items that you think would benefit North Bay and Northern Ontarians that you think FONOM is advocating for right now?
One of the big ones has been the bail reform. Okay. And so that's just looking at this catch and release that's happening a lot with the courts, and just the system is challenged. And, the federal government's seeing it, the provincial government's seeing it. It blends between all levels of government, the justice system. And so when you have police officers going out there arresting someone and then finding out they actually have all their other charges, some of them might be very violent or very serious, you're arresting them, you're bringing them to court, they get out on bail, you see them the next day. Yeah. Then in smaller communities, you have where there was no crime, now there's a lot of petty crime. They were able to not lock their doors or worry about their sheds being broken into, and now they're constantly having to deal with that person stealing, getting charged, getting out on bail, repeat offender. Yeah. And so we need to take a look at the system. But part of that has also been looking at the Mental Health Act and looking at the interconnectedness of the justice system and the Mental Health Act, and are we supporting people who are, experiencing mental health challenges, addictions that are also falling into crime? Are we looking at the whole system as a whole? And the way the Mental Health Act was changed and losing, the North Bay Psychiatric Hospital, which was provincially run, and that impact now to try and be in community to help people, and is it working? Yeah. And it's not. And so we've been also advocating for what we're calling Ontario Homes, which is a space where for folks that have mental health or addiction challenges that are also, going through the justice system because they're also engaging in crime, that it would be a way for the justice system to bring them to a facility to get treatment. Okay. And then instead of them going to jail, they're actually going to be supported and treated, maybe hopefully changing their life trajectory and changing how things are happening so that they're not continuously just part of that cycle.
I like that. I think I know, now I'm trying to game myself in terms of the idea of why this is a big issue. I mean, obviously it's a big issue, but, in terms of being online and scrolling for media and story ideas, the one place that I low-key love and low-key hate is the crime watch groups on Facebook. Yep. Because they think every crime is a serious crime, and they don't maybe understand why certain people are there. And they also probably don't necessarily separate people who are struggling and then them being criminals. Obviously, those two are not one-to-one. Yeah. So I think this idea is good. I think is a need for this. I struggle being now putting on my pessimist hat. Is this something that FONOM and municipalities in Northern Ontario, Northeastern Ontario can move to push and do, or is it something bigger? Is this like a exclusively an MPP, Queen's Park thing, or God forbid, is this something larger like federally? That seems like a bigger catch.
It's both.
It is.
It is both, yeah, and that's it's also at the same time, you think about this and you recognize people's rights.
Yeah.
You don't force treatment. You can't force people.
No, you can't keep them there.
No, but is the system the right system? Are they getting the right supports when they're in jail? Mm-hmm. Are they getting treatment? Are they, there's just so many factors. And so that's why we're saying we need to rethink this completely. Okay. And FONOM actually partners with NOMA, which is the organization out of Northwestern Ontario.
Yes.
And so we do a lot of partnering with them as well because we have, as Northern Ontarians, very similar challenges. But we do what's called Hill Days, where the president from NOMA and from FONOM will go to Ottawa and talks to the MPs there as well and bring our issues to them to say, don't forget Northern Ontario. And we try and also bridge the province with the federal government as well with Northern Ontario.
Okay. That sounds awesome. How often are they again?
Pardon?
How often are these Hill Days?
I think just once a year.
Okay.
But we do have open communication, especially because, throughout Ontario, we have our own MPs that represent us. And so we have really good working relationships with our MPs that represent all the districts in the FONOM district, and same with the MPPs and any of the MPs or MPPs that have portfolios that would touch Northern Ontario.
Right.
But I have to say, MP Rushford, MPP Fideli, they're very much in our corner. And when you hear FONOM, it's a respected voice at Queen's Park and in Ottawa.
Good. Because I was wondering, is this something that, the city of North Bay has to kind of abide by? You said earlier it's kind of funded or it's recognized or it's facilitated through different, communication channels and structures. North Bay has to take part in FONOM, correct?
So we pay a membership into FONOM to be represented by FONOM. Okay. And so all the municipalities pay in the FONOM's district pay a fee to be a part of FONOM. But then at the same time, FONOM is there to represent them, to hear from them, but then also to bring back too. So a lot of times we'll, resolutions at council, some of those longer, wordier ones will also at the very end say, and this will also be circulated to AMO, Roma, FONOM, and then name a bunch of other MPs and MPPs. And then FONOM will get a copy of it. And at our board meetings, we'll talk about those resolutions as well and be like, Horn Payne brought this up, but also we saw East Ferris brought it up too, or wow, 50 of our communities have all passed this similar motion. We should see that as a priority. Okay. So we try to go two-way in communicating.
Okay. Interesting. So I want to segue in a little bit here. Yeah. You're welcome to weave in FONOM or Centennial and anything. We're going next a couple topics, but you mentioned money. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to get to budget in a minute because we know we haven't technically talked about it yet. It's more of a 2026 thing, but we'll get there, I promise you. We talked a bit about resources and assets in the community. And so can you tell me a little bit about the asset management initiative or project with the city right now?
So asset management is something that's legislated by the province, but also something that all municipalities do across Canada.
Right.
And so the idea is, there's different softwares and there's different ways to keep track of your assets.
Right.
Cities have bridges, roads, water, wastewater, buildings, parks, all of those physical assets. But they also have life expectancies. And, if you build a building, are you investing in it to make sure it's staying, the most modern it can be? Are you making sure that the infrastructure is stable? Are you investing at the right point? Mm-hmm. Are you letting the infrastructure get so bad that you need to do a full replacement? And that's going to cost a lot more.
Right.
Or could you potentially, at this point, find other ways to keep it going so that you're not having to do a full replacement? So the asset management plan is that opportunity for us to really look at all of our infrastructure. And the city has billions of dollars of infrastructure that's been built over its life.
Yep.
There's some water mains that are 100 years old that are still there.
Yeah.
And we even a few years ago, what we would have to do is if we wanted to replace it, you'd have to dig it up and replace it. But now there's new technologies where you can put a liner through it and then it can expand the life. So instead of us having to dig up a water main that might be under buildings and could be really costly, we can find other technologies to help out.
Okay.
So there's also communities, North Bay, we don't have as many bridges, but I was on a panel back in 2023 with some other communities talking about asset management planning. And there were some communities that had hundreds of bridges because of just the nature of the landscape.
Yeah.
But they only had a couple hundred people type of thing. So how does a community make sure that it can fund its assets over its lifespan? Okay. So that's where we need to make sure that we're paying attention, we're looking at the standards we want to keep our assets at so that we're investing at those right moments.
Okay.
But also when you add assets to that portfolio and you're just constantly adding assets, do we actually have the money, the resources? Are we thinking long term? Because, today we could go out there and build all kinds of new roads and put in all kinds of new sidewalks. But are we actually thinking about the long-term costs that we need to do to maintain those to the standards that the community expects?
Right.
So it's an opportunity, it's an exercise that is required because it's also good for the province to see where we're at with our assets and helping us make sure we have funding and we're taking care of our community. But it's also a good opportunity for us to really look at what our assets are and making sure that we're investing in them.
Well put. I think the reason, I don't know why I missed this. I mean, we're busy here at Echo, what happens. But there was I'm going to try to get this right. An asset management plan survey in the summer, sometime, I think it closed on July 31st.
Yeah.
And you're welcome to talk about this, but I have a little bit of information here in front of me, so I'm going to kind of cue it up. The survey was a 4-week online asset management plan survey, which closed at the end of July. It polled about 1,600 residents approximately, which I guess was meant to kind of outline and recognize the key areas in which North Bay cares or what they care about in terms of seeing assets be improved, maintained, or completely renovated, right? And so some key takeaways I'm going to share with you here. It says here 60% support improving services, 31% prefer to maintain current levels. I'm not quite sure what that means. And 7% would like to see a reduction. So those are like the three things I kept off the top. There's a lot more to this. There's like survey highlights, there's roads and ways and drinking water, which we'll get to in a minute for sure. Maybe I'm reading between the lines here, Maggie, but if you're looking at supporting and improving services, that's going to probably have a change to the budget, maybe taxes. How does that look in terms of like if the people of North Bay want to improve sidewalks, roads, bridges, all two of ours, whatever they are, what's it going to cost the city?
So it's a great point. And so, that can range from people saying, I want our roads to be in better condition, which we can all agree upon, but there's between potholes, delamination, and rural roads and whatnot, it can really range in the cost or the impact of it. But, we can take that information and then as we come up with our capital plans, look at our asset management plan, our capital plans, and our other plans and go, okay, so the community is giving us some feedback saying this. Are we making strides in improving it? When you look at our arena facilities, do we need a new arena? If you talk to the folks that use the arenas, yes, we do. And so there's, a chance for us to appeal to those who do want us to see improved assets.
Right.
So we do, you have to also take it with a grain of salt too, because the surveys are a great capture of some folks that participate and the feedback they receive. It was also a requirement that we get public input on the asset management plan. But this kind of gives us a benchmark. So we can continuously do shorter surveys, because I know that there was a number of surveys this summer, and then that one was also a bit of a longer one. It had a lot more questions and was a bit more intricate and detailed for the average person who might not understand all the nuances or words that come with the assets of the city.
Yep.
But it was a good chance for us to just get an idea of where are people at. Do they think that North Bay's roads and assets are perfect and we don't need to do that? Or do they think that we should be paying a bit more attention? And so we can take the messaging that we get from that survey to help us when we're developing those other plans.
I think it's interesting. I'm looking at the survey highlights, and there's a whole document that's listed on the website. Maybe we can link it in the video description. I'm actually kind of amazed that more. I'm not. This is not meant to be critical.
Yeah.
I'm amazed. Again, it's only a snapshot that more people are not dissatisfied. In the content generation world, I read through so many comment sections, and I always try to dunk on them because they're typically very vocal, very invested, concerned residents, but they like to complain. And I'm shocked that, again, what might be 1,600 people, the level of dissatisfaction isn't matching maybe like a large, vitriolic comment section that I normally would expect. So you mentioned the drinking water, and you probably know where I'm going with this. Probably. Maggie is a keen listener, I hope, of Echo Essentials. We did cover the PFAS stuff.
Yes.
And I know that's bigger than just a North Bay thing, but talking about those comments, a lot of the conversation revolved around like infrastructure. How do we maintain it? How do we update it? We can't just keep cleaning things up. There has to be something done, we think, to improve, how we can better detect, better filter, and have overall better quality water to drink. And so the survey highlights on here said 73% of people who were surveyed were satisfied with drinking water. Interesting. So that tells me, as a host of the show, that I guess enough people cared about that subject. Maybe I don't know. Maybe that's a loaded thing. But recently, I know this is a big question, Maggie. There was a big town hall that preceded our episode. It was good timing. Well done, Echo. And there's been some ratifications and changes and some funding stuff that's coming from the federal level and a portion that's coming out of the city level. Is this something that can address something like this in terms of an asset regarding North Bay's water and drinking and water treatment plant stuff?
Definitely.
Okay.
It's really interesting because I still talk to people that go, what's PFAS?
Yeah.
Or they go, how did I just find out about this? And you're going, well, it's been in the news. It's talked about at city council meetings, but it's all in how people consume their information. And especially in this day and age when you're just bombarded with information,
it's a lot. Not
just local news, provincial, federal, national, international. It's just, it can get lost. And it's just information overload that people sometimes I think just tune it out. But I'm really hopeful and really happy that the federal government has come through with this next funding announcement, which is the $100 million sum to help with the remediation, but then also with the design of the water treatment plant, which is, our water treatment plant is fairly new, in one of our newer assets in the spectrum of water treatment plants. But there's this PFAS is such an evolving science, and we're every day, from academics to researchers to all levels of government, are learning more about it. And so I do believe it's being responded to as quickly as possible. Would I love for it to have been dealt with, the second we found out about it? But I don't know if the technologies were there. And today there might be a technology, tomorrow there might be a better one. So how do we balance that? But I do think it's interesting that that's 71% were satisfied. But, that can be tied to the fact that the waters, they get water every day. They don't have brown water. They could, and they might not be aware of it.
I think it just because it looks the same.
Yeah.
Right. We talked about this in the episode too. Again, go back and listen to the episode, please. Engage with the content. But the one category, going back to the study, to come back to this, that they were people, I think surveys, participants were most dissatisfied with were the roads and sidewalks, of course, because you can see them. Everyone uses them.
You drive them every day.
If I were to tell you that there's, this forever chemical, forever plastic in your water that has, a history of studies that relate to health, concerns, but you can't see them. It's like, well, okay, well, is it that big of a deal? I can't see it. A little bit of object permanence, but it's there. So getting back to that recent announcement, trying to skim through it here. I think it said $8.25 million is for the design of a treatment upgrade to support of a pilot program to test PFAS drinking options and North Bay's North Bay drinking water treatment plant. Oh my gosh, that's a mouthful. And so the total announcement was about approximately 120 million. Yeah, 120 million. It was announced at Jack Ireland. So 120 million. Quite a bit of cash. I think 97%, give or take, is coming from the Department of National Defense.
Correct. Yep.
And then 3% is coming from city.
Yeah, it's a couple $100,000, which is still significant for the city, but compared to what is considered the annual budget for the city, which is closer to 120 million, I think it's, and also recognizing the relationship and the role and the history. I'm very happy that the federal government is working with the city to remediate, because it also, we can change the water treatment plant, but we also need to think about the source. And if the source is continuing, then we need to address that.
Yeah. So, I'm keen to see the environmental scientists continue to monitor it. I hope this book has been maybe closed a little bit, because, we can always put a band-aid on something until we actually get to the root of the issue. I'm hoping the funding and hoping stuff like this can kind of help get to that root and help solve and clean up and improve our water drinking quality, because, who doesn't want to have better drinking water? Exactly.
And I think, having those town halls is a really good opportunity to share information with the public, but also to hear directly from them too. The first one that they did was at Memorial Gardens, and there was a good turnout, a lot of good information, but this second one that they did was even larger. It was an update, and it was being able to show, from the last time we did this to now, here's what's changed. So I think that it's, as long as there's that open communication between the public and all levels of government, that's really important.
I do want to come back to that, because that's a nice way to end it. I'm going to try to remember that one. We're going to write feedback on my page here.
Yes.
But let's talk a bit about some other money items. So we kind of queued up at the beginning. It's not 2026 yet. Well, it might be now when this episode comes out. But a big issue or a big topic for City Hall and for your position in particular, correct me if I'm wrong, is the budget for 2026. So where are we at? What's been published? What's not been published? What gets finalized? Why is it 486 pages? What's going on, Maggie? Help me out here.
Yeah, so the city's annual budget, we have to present a budget annually as part of our requirements as a council and as a city. And so the budget's being deliberated by council starting the second week in January. And so we have some days set aside. This year, what's also different is that we've moved the budget meetings to the council chambers.
Okay.
So typically, the committee meetings where we've discussed the budget in the past, for the past, I don't know how many years, has always been in the boardroom on the 5th floor, just because it's been a bit more informal. They've sometimes spanned hours. So,
Lovely.
You want to, it was a bit more of a comfortable space to just be able to have discussions. But then there's also the ability of the public to participate.
Okay.
And so, yes, the public could sit in the room, but it wasn't being recorded and it wasn't being broadcast. And so then it kind of left the public out from watching the budget deliberations or feeling like they could participate. And so council moved to have the budget deliberations in the council chambers, which will be a bit more formal, just based off of the structure of the space and the council meetings.
The setting's right.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's where it's going to be taking place. Right now, the administrative recommended budget, it has a tax levy increase of 5.23. And so that's about, it's just over $1 million now. I think it's $1,100,000 is 1% now based on our budget increase. And so we're looking at that increase, but that includes increases that come from policing, from DSAB, from our service partners, plus the city. So it's taking together all the service levels of the ABCs, plus the city that council has mandated, and this is staff saying this is how much we need to be able to meet the service levels that have been set out by council.
Okay.
So what we end up doing is going through the budget, and why it is 468 pages is because there are a couple of reports tied to it, some policies as well. So then that way people aren't trying to search for policies. It's all included in one large large PDF document.
Large, putting it lightly.
Yes. But also the 10-year capital plan is included. So that means that the city actually plans out what our capital investments are going to be or could be over the next 10 years, forecasting it out. Realistically, the next 3 years, so 2026, 27, 28, are more accurate numbers. When we're looking 10 years out, we have rough estimates. We have an idea of what the cost would be or how we're going to pay for it, where the funds are going to come from. But that can really change with time or priorities. It can get bumped up. It can get pushed back based on the asset management plan as well, looking at that. So we have every single project that the city is looking to do from a capital perspective included in that. So that's why it's such a large document.
You can't just do that in one afternoon. Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. But it gives you a breakdown of where are we funding it from? What is this project about? How much money has already been set aside? So we know if we are setting aside $50,000 a year because we know 10 years out it's going to cost us a certain amount of money. Sometimes it's better for us to set aside a bit every year than for 10 years out have just a big price tag to absorb in that year.
Right.
So we're looking, that's where the city looks at the capital plan. But then there's also the operating budget, which breaks down the costs for personnel, for goods and services, for the revenues that each department brings in and each service within each department.
Okay.
Very detailed.
Yeah. So, I mean, 486 pages, it's got to be detailed because there's no way that's brief.
No.
So there's lots of there. Is it available online?
It is.
Can I go look at that this afternoon and do nothing for 4 days?
Be my guest.
I won't.
Yeah, exactly. So it's on the city website.
Okay.
When you look at upcoming meetings and you click on upcoming meetings, it's the one for, I think it's January 12th is our first meeting, and it says PDF is available.
Okay.
You can download it there. I like looking at it digitally because I can just control find the things I want to look for. Some folks like printed copies, but I prefer to just go through it digitally.
That poor printer.
I know.
No, you can't. That's like a Harry Potter book. That's massive.
It is. It's they're thick stacks.
Yeah. You can tell how much often I read. My reference point for large books is Harry Potter. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot to go through. I'm sure it's going to be, will it be skimmed by the point when it's approved? Because you said there's additional materials. It's not going to exist solely as 486 pages, right?
So we end up pulling it apart. So when it's approved, it'll be approved as the operating budget. Okay. The reports will be pulled from that. The capital budget will still be, I think it's the vast majority of the pages is the capital budget, and that's still posted because it's for transparency. You know, folks want to see and be able to see what the city is thinking and planning, and that's our way of doing that is by providing everyone with that information.
Makes sense. Okay, so when will the budget be approved, finished, finalized, done?
Oh, I would love for it to be finished and finalized by the end of that week, which I think would be, or that would be when committee would finish with it, and then we would recommend it to council. So any work that we do at committee ends up being recommended to the next council meeting, and that council, which is the same members of committees, would then formally approve it. So that would be the last week of January.
Okay. Because again, like I alluded to earlier, last time we had you in, it was early April.
It was our budget process this term of council has been more delayed. Okay. Typically, it's been worked on in February and March. That's normal for the first year of a council term because councils are elected in October. Our first meeting's in November. For us to just dive straight into a budget when, depending on how many councilors are new and trying to become oriented with the city, that's a lot to put on them right away. So we try and push it off a bit. But I like to have the budget set because then it gives staff direction. And they know that they can put out procurements and that they know they can work on projects and they can get things going and we can get good prices on procurement when we're not waiting until halfway through the construction season when all the construction companies are already committed and they couldn't put in a higher bid because they don't necessarily need the project. And so that's where if we can get it set, it really helps the city be able to move forward.
So this will be your fourth budget, right?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Fourth and final.
Fourth and final.
For this term of council, that's
I was going to say,
correct.
are we giving away some sort of secret sauce news here? But I think just to kind of cue that up, there's a lot of things in the budget. You outlined it, I think pretty well. Listeners, viewers, go sparse through it if you can. Go to the meetings if they can
Yes.
go,
Yep.
engage, because this year in particular has been so many different pieces in conversation about money and budget and what's happening. This year you can kind of get to see the source material at raw and get to
Yep.
see it, at length, to put it lightly. But it's been an interesting year, Maggie. I mean, we entered 2026. If not, by the time this airs, it will be 2026.
Yes.
Which is frightening to see how fast time flies. But what do you see as big issues for maybe not just Maggie, deputy mayor, but city council at large? Now that we're in 2026, there's obviously something big happening in October. But now that the Centennial year is behind us, a lot of other things are behind us. There's lots of learning, lots of unlearning, lots of projects coming up. What's next?
So with the last year of the council term, we go lame towards once the election period starts. And so we really only have a certain window to get things done before the rest of it's just, keeping things moving mode. And that way, it'd be very strange for us to be
passing policies a month before an election.
Yeah, during an election period type of thing. And so there's a lame duck period that we take into account. And so there's a very short window where we can get some more things finalized. I do think that, the PFAS discussion is going to be ongoing. That's not ending. I don't think anyone wants to stop talking about it.
Great.
I think it's good that we continue to have those conversations. The community center, at the Omushul complex, is going to be built and finished in August, which is significant. In this council term, we went from the very beginning debating over the V-shaped design and the cost.
And the change room, the doors, the location,
Exactly,
everything.
yes.
Yeah.
To being able to go back to the table, reconfigure, get a price limit, get in a different process that's just allowing us to get it all done in one term of council, which, this facility will change a lot of things. And there's a lot of people that are really excited. And sure, they might not be the vocal ones, but I have a lot of people saying to me, I can't wait to be able to go to that arena. So, and to use the facility for other purposes as well. So that's a really big one. There's a few more policies that we want to finish off that we had started back in 2023 and 2024 that need some revamping.
Could you clarify?
So our long-term financial planning policy.
Okay.
So from procurement, we were waiting for a few pieces like the asset management plan to come in before we could finish that one. Our reserve policy needs some updating still. There was some updating we were doing on those policies that we wanted to get done, but then also there were still some outstanding pieces. So it was kind of let's do as much as we can, get the other pieces in, and then finish off. I think it's just there's a chance for council to come together this last year and to find ways to continue to move our city forward.
Yeah.
There's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be a lot of difficulties, but I think it really shows character and community when you can come to a table with different opinions and different perspectives, have really good discussions, and then, maybe disagree, maybe agree, but then be able to move forward and do it as a collective.
Well put. I think as you enter 2026, that's good energy to carry.
Mm-hmm.
I think, people will be, I think as some of those big items are hopefully behind us, some in particular, I think that's a good way of kind of going about it. If it might sound very maybe a little too cheery, but it's a cheery season. I'm going to bask in it. Good. I think that's fine. I think, especially considering, some of those stipulations where you really can't do a lot in that lame period leading up to an election. I think that is an important dressing to kind of understand that people are going to maybe want their counselors, their preferred counselors to be active and to be kind of early campaigning or positioning. That might not happen. That might happen. But I think after the year that we just had, it'd be nice to kind of see them, whether they disagree or agree, continue to work together to get what they can done.
Exactly.
Right. And I think, again, it's been, I'm like an armchair quarterback. I'm not involved. I know a lot of the counselors. I've known you, Maggie, for 15 plus years at this point?
Yeah, I guess so. It's been a while. Yeah.
It's been a bit. Yeah. So it's I'm keen to see what 2026 will bring us at the city level, at the council level, at the news level. It's been a fun ride being the host. I will continue to be the host from what I understand. But let's not wait until another 7 months to have you back on. Let's have you back on soon.
Yep.
But is there anything you want to leave our listeners and audience before we get out of here on you put it well before. I'm going to toss you one more time, get an extra shot in.
Yeah.
And say like, here's what.
I think at the end of the day, we're all human.
Yeah.
And I can say that we all want to see our city and community thrive and be better and think about the future. And there's, it's so easy to get caught up in the news that is just upsetting or that can really make you feel really strong emotions. And I respect that. But it's at the end of the day, don't forget that the people that are out there are also human and that we're doing the best that we can.
Fair enough. Well put. Yeah, I agree. You're also faces and people at the end of it. So let's keep that energy going. So, okay, Maggie, we'll see you in 2026.
Sounds good.
We'll book you for another one. I would love to throw some fire guns, questions at you some more, but we'll wait till 2026. All
right.
We'll bait the line. But Maggie, thank you for coming in.
Anytime.
It's been a pleasure. And we'll see you next year.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much for listening or watching the Echo Essentials podcast. My name, as always, is Chris Pekarski. Let us know what you think about the episode or the year at large. There was so much happening this year. Drop a comment, give us a like, share the episode. If you get a chance, subscribe to the Echo Essentials newsletter. Every week you get information about Echo and our community sent directly to you. Thank you so much for listening this time, all year. Have a happy new year. See you next time.